Thank you, Charles. Your Excellencies, dear colleagues, dear friends of Europe, Balkans and the European Balkans. I'd like to first thank the organizers of this very important summit on the Balkans Balance Sheet, which takes place, as we know, towards the end of the Slovenian presidency, which has worked very hard and successfully to materialize the European perspective of the Western Balkans. I believe that two questions in particular will be on many minds this morning as we start this summit meeting. First, will the Irish no to the Lisbon Treaty affect enlargement too? And second, has Europe got enlargement right in the Western Balkans? My answer to the first question is a qualified no, and to the second question a clear and unequivocal yes. Let me begin with Ireland and the aftermath of the no vote there. I followed the debate in Ireland very closely. Enlargement did not play a role. Enlargement was never an issue in the campaign in Ireland. Besides, accession negotiations have never in the past been disrupted by stops and starts in the institutional reform process of the Union. The same goes for the European perspective of the Western Balkans. It was said by, I think, Giles and George that we have business as usual now in the Balkans. I'm not quite sure if that is the exactly correct expression concerning the Balkans, because one of the reasons I find my job so fascinating is that when you go to the office in the morning, you never know which crisis you are facing that day. But nevertheless, while the Irish vote gives cause for reflection, we should certainly not take any sabbatical from our valuable work for peace and stability, progress and democracy in the Western Balkans. In other words, while the European Union considers how to pursue its institutional reform, which is necessary, we keep on, in parallel, we keep on working on a carefully managed and gradual accession process in southeastern Europe. And that is because of our own interest, because we want to extend the zone of European values of peace and prosperity, of liberty and democracy. To illustrate this, since the Irish vote, two chapters have been opened in the accession negotiations, both for Croatia and Turkey, and we signed the stabilization and association agreement with Bosnia and Herzegovina last week. The EU's enlargement policy is on track, clearly. Let me then ask the second question: where do we stand as regards our policy, our strategy concerning the Western Balkans? I wrote a piece in the Guardian earlier this year, and in that piece I argued that the region had a chance to achieve stability and prosperity once the challenges related to Kosovo's status and Serbia's EU future had been met successfully. And I must say that I was quite surprised because at the time it was very hard to find an editor who would take this piece, this article. Most found it way too optimistic. I'm very grateful for The Guardian that it took this article finally. In that article I wrote that by the end of 2008 all the Western Balkans countries should have passed through the gateway for candidate status by signing stabilization and association agreements with the European Union. Thanks to the SAA signature with Bosnia-Herzegovina last week, we have now reached this milestone. In my article, I also hope that the Serbian citizens would seize the opportunity and vote for a democratic Europe and reform-oriented government. The elections of the 11th of May were certainly a close call, but they paved the way for this outcome. The signature of the SAA with Serbia in April and the opening of visa dialogue were cited by many observers as crucial signals of the EU's commitment. Finally, I challenged the pessimists on Serbia's ICTY cooperation. I believe that full cooperation is possible once an EU-oriented government takes office. I hope by the end of this week there should be a press conference in 2 hours, 3 hours to announce the formation of such government. And with Ciuplianin in The Hague now, a new momentum may be underway in Belgrade. Of course, time will tell, but I think there is a real chance for the moment. Ladies and gentlemen, last year, a well-known think tank, which I mercifully don't pronounce here, mused that, quote, Euro-Atlantic integration is not the magnet once thought in Serbia, unquote. The West, it warned, quote, may have to recognize Serbia has chosen a different path, and there is little to do in the short term to shift it back. Thus, the West needs to prepare for the possibility of living with a rejectionist, isolationist, pro-Russian and anti-EU Serbia, unquote. Clearly, this think tank had given up already in spring 2007, yet the past month's events tell quite a different story. And let me be clear, tough criticism can help to shake up politics and policies. In the Western Balkans, in the past 20 years, this has been badly needed. Frank and free debate is essential. Yet, I simply disagree with those who belittle the EU's policy in the Western Balkans. The empirical evidence over the last couple of years proves the point very clearly. In my view, we need patience and determination, not doomsday scenarios to drive progress in the region. And especially with Serbia in my mind, evolution rather than catharsis is certainly the better recipe for change. Therefore, and to conclude, I'm glad that the European Council last week gave its full support for the European perspective of the Western Balkans. It stressed that by making solid progress in economic and political reform and by fulfilling the necessary conditions and requirements, the remaining potential candidates in the Western Balkans should achieve candidate status according to their own merits with EU membership as ultimate goal. To my mind, this is clear speak at its best. This is a very powerful message. The European Union sticks to its word. Thank you for your attention.